人生という壮大なドラマの価値を決めるのは、華やかな序章でもなければ、嵐のような中盤でもありません。幕が下りるその瞬間に、あなたの魂がどのような色で輝き、どのような音色を奏でているか、それだけで決まるのです。終わりよければ全てよしとは、単なる慰めの言葉ではない。これこそが、宇宙を貫く絶対の真理であり、生命の法則なのです。断言しましょう。この世はね、晩年こそが人生の全てなのですよ。今日は、皆様が心のどこかで恐れ、できることなら目を背けたいと思っている晩年というテーマについて、その本質を骨の髄まで響くように、そして皆様の魂が震えるほど熱く、深く、語り尽くしたいと思います。どうか、ただ耳で聞くのではなく、命で聞いていただきたい。今の世の中を見渡すと、実に嘆かわしい。いや、滑稽とさえ言える風潮が蔓延しております。若作りだのと騒ぎ立てて、少しでも白髪が出れば染め、シワができれば隠し、まるで老いることが悪であり、敗北であるかのように怯えている。還暦をよぎれば赤いちゃんちゃんこを着せて、あたかも人生の一線から退いた過去の人のような扱いをする。そして当の本人たちも、もう還暦だから、もう年金暮らしだからと、自ら進んで人生のステージを降り、客席に座ろうとする。はっきり申し上げましょう。これは、とんでもない間違いです。天から授かった命に対する、ブレーキはあまりない冒涜と言ってもいい。そのような卑屈な精神でいるから、病魔に見入られ、運命に見放されるのです。人生の本番は、還暦を過ぎてから、肉体の衰えを感じ始めてからこそが、真のスタートなのです。それまでの60年、70年は、言ってみればリハーサルです。学校で言えば予習の時間です。様々な経験を積み、酸いも甘いも噛み分け、成功におごり、失敗に泣き、裏切られ、愛され、そうやって自分の魂を練り上げ、人間としての土台を作るための準備期間に過ぎないのです。考えてもごらんなさい。果物だって、青いうちは酸っぱくて食べられない。雨風に耐え、太陽の光を浴び続け、熟しきった最後にこそ、芳醇な香りと甘みをたたえるじゃありませんか。人間も同じです。若さゆえの張り詰めた肌や、無人蔵の体力、それはそれで美しい素材かもしれない。しかし、それは未完成の美です。人生の荒波を乗り越え、傷つきながらも立ち上がり、許し、感謝し、悟りを得た晩年の人間にだけ備わる円熟の美、魂の風格に比べれば、若さなど、まだまだ青い。なぜ私がこれほどまでに強く、晩年の重要性を断言するのか。それは、晩年という時期こそが、その人間が一生をかけて積み上げてきた心の結果が、一切のごまかしようもなく、その肉体に、その表情に、その環境に、如実に現れる収穫の時期だからです。若い頃の顔立ちは、親から授かった天然の恵みです。そこにあなたの手柄はありません。しかし、60、70、80と年を重ねたあなたの顔つき、あなたの雰囲気、あなたの言葉の響き、これらはすべて、あなた自身が長い歳月をかけて、毎日毎晩、心というのみで掘り上げてきた自画像そのものです。私は長年、実に数えきれないほどの人間を見てまいりました。その中には、若い頃は飛ぶ鳥を落とす勢いで成功し、富と名声の頂点を極め、誰もが羨むような生活を送っていたにもかかわらず、晩年になってから、見るも無残なほど卑屈になり、孤独と不安に震え、家族からも疎まれ、会う人ごとに昔はすごかったんだと虚しい自慢話をするか、今の世の中はダメだと呪いの言葉を吐くような、哀れな末路をたどった人がいます。彼らの顔には、深い不満のシワが刻まれ、その目からは光が消え、まるで枯れ木のような殺伐とした木を放っている。一方で、決して派手な人生ではなかったかもしれない。世間的な名声などなかったかもしれない。しかし、晩年を迎えて、まるで秋の夕日のように、穏やかで、深く、暖かく、ただそこに座っているだけで、周囲の人々の心を癒し、自然と手を合わせたくなるような、神々しいまでの輝きを放っている人もいます。 彼らの周りにはいつも笑顔が絶えず、若者たちが知恵を求めて集まり、孫たちが膝の上で安心して眠る。その顔は、シワの一本一本までが慈愛に満ちて、まるで仏のような崇高な美しさをたたえている。この両者の決定的な違いは、一体どこから生まれるのでしょうか。運命のいたずらでしょうか。生まれつきの才能でしょうか。環境のせいでしょうか。いいえ、断じて違います。天は平等です。その違いを生んだのは、たった一つ、心をどう使ってきたか。ただその一点に尽きるのです。皆様、ここが最も肝心なところです。よくお聞きなさい。私たちの心は、巨大な磁石のようなものです。そして同時に、精密な放送局でもあります。あなたが心の中で強く思ったこと、信じたこと、感じたことを、宇宙に向かって発信し、それと同質のものを、現実という形にして引き寄せる力を持っています。これは物理的な法則と同じくらい、厳然たる宇宙の真理です。もしあなたが、年を取れば体は弱り、頭は鈍り、誰からも相手にされなくなるのが当たり前だと、心の底で信じているならば、あなたの肉体と環境は、忠実にその通りになります。脳が衰退せよという命令を全身に送り、腰は曲がり、目はかすみ、記憶は飛び、人は離れていくでしょう。なぜなら、あなたがそれを望んだからです。老いとは惨めなものだという信念を、自ら実現させてしまったのです。自分で自分に私は廃車寸前のポンコツだというレッテルを貼り、呪いをかけているのと同じです。しかし、逆に、もしあなたが、肉体は変化すれども、我が魂は永遠に成長し続ける。年を重ねるごとに、私の精神はより深く、より豊かに、より輝きを増していく。私は今、人生で最も賢く、最も愛に満ちた存在になりつつあると、確固たる信念を持っていたならば、どうなると思いますか。あなたの60兆個の細胞の一つ一つが、その力強い指令を受け取り、喚起して活性化します。たとえシワが増えようとも、その瞳は少年のように好奇心に輝き、その言葉は若者のように情熱を帯び、その立ち居振る舞いには、百戦錬磨の将軍のような、あるいは全てを包み込む大地のような、王者の風格が漂うようになります。これこそが、真の意味での若さであり、人間としての勝利なのです。医学がどうだ、科学がどうだという前に、この心の力の絶対性を知りなさい。肉体の年齢など、カレンダーの上の数字に過ぎません。そんなちっぽけな数字に、あなたの大切な人生を支配させてはいけません。私が知る限り、真に優れた晩年を生きている人々は、皆、自分の年齢を忘れています。もう80歳だなどと指折り数えてため息をつくいとまがあったら、さあ、今日は何を学ぼうか、今日は誰を喜ばせようか、今日はどんな新しい発見があるだろうかと、目を輝かせている。彼らは、過去を振り返るのではなく、未来を憂うのでもなく、ただ、今この瞬間を、命の限り燃焼させて生きることに夢中になっているのです。彼らにとって、老いとは衰退ではなく、成熟へのプロセスです。失うことではなく、余計なものが削ぎ落とされ、本質だけが残る循環のプロセスなのです。しかし、残念なことに、多くの人がその味わいが出る前に、自ら腐ってしまおうとする。過去の栄光にしがみつき、昔は良かった。俺は元部長だ。昔はもっと綺麗だったなどと、色あせた看板をいつまでも背負っている。過去の自分と今の自分を比べて、減点法でしか自分を見られない。あるいは、どうせ先は短いと投げやりになり、テレビの前で一日中、他人の人生を眺め、ワイドショーのゴシップに一喜一憂して、貴重な命の時間をドブに捨てている。なんともったいないことでしょうか。人生のクライマックスは、これからだというのに、これからが、あなたがあなたらしく輝く、千載一遇のチャンスだというのに、皆様に、どうしても伝えたいことがあります。それは、晩年における言葉の重要性です。人間は、年を取れば取るほど、言葉を慎まなければなりません。なぜなら、長年の経験によって練り上げられた精神力により、 言葉の持つ実現力が若い頃よりもはるかに強力になっているからです。老人の一言は重いのです。晩年のあなたが吐く愚痴はただの愚痴ではありません。それは猛毒となってあなた自身の体を蝕み、周囲の空気を汚染します。痛い、辛い、つまらない、寂しい、こうした言葉を口にするたびにあなたの脳内ではストレスホルモンが分泌され、血管は収縮し、免疫力は下がり、老化は加速し、運気は雲の子を散らすように逃げていきます。これは決して精神論ではありません。実際、医学的にも証明されつつある事実です。消極的な言葉は、脳内の神経伝達物質のバランスを崩し、自律神経を乱し、体を内側から破壊していくのです。あなたが疲れたといえば、体は疲れているんだなと認識し、本当に鉛のように重くなります。もうダメだと言えば、脳は解決策を探すのをやめ、思考停止します。逆に、晩年のあなたが語る感謝の言葉は、万能の妙薬となって、心身を癒します。ありがたい、嬉しい、幸せだ、おいしい、気持ちいい。こうした言葉を口癖にすれば、不思議なほどに体調は整い、表情筋は緩んで柔和になり、良い医者や良い友人に巡り合い、経済的な不安すらも解消されていくのです。言葉には言霊という魂が宿ります。あなたが発した言葉は、一番最初に、あなた自身の耳が聞き、あなた自身の脳が理解し、あなた自身の細胞が反応するのです。他人を呪えば、その呪いは相手に届く前に、まずあなた自身を呪い殺します。他人を祝福すれば、その祝福は相手に届く前に、まずあなた自身を満たします。ですから、今日から死ぬその瞬間まで、否定的な言葉は一切口にしないと誓ってください。たとえ体が痛んでも、ああ、痛いということは、まだ神経が生きている証拠だ。ありがたいと笑い飛ばすくらいの気概を持ってください。お金がないではなく、あるものを大切に使おうと言い換えてください。その心意気が、運命を好転させるのです。そして、もう一つ大切なこと。それは、取り越し苦労をきっぱりとやめることです。年配の方の中には、まだ起きてもいない未来のことを心配して、夜も眠れないという人がいます。病気になったらどうしよう。認知症になったら、家族に迷惑をかける。死ぬ時は苦しいだろうか。お金が尽きたらどうしよう。いいですか。はっきり言います。その心配こそが、不幸を呼び寄せる元凶なのです。病は気からという言葉がありますが、これは単なることわざではありません。心配という心の影が、肉体の生理的機能に異常をきたし、本当に病気を作り出すのです。あなたが心配すればするほど、その心配の対象にエネルギーを注ぐことになり、それを現実に引き寄せてしまう。これが心の法則です。認知症を恐れれば恐れるほど、脳は萎縮します。貧困を恐れれば恐れるほど、心は貧しくなり、判断を誤ります。明日のことは、明日考えればよろしい。来年のことは、来年考えればよろしい。天があなたを生かしている限り、必ず道はあります。大事なことは、今、この一瞬を、どれだけ明るく、朗らかに、勇ましく生きるか、それだけです。もし、どうしても不安が頭をもたげてきたら、鏡に向かって、にっこりと笑ってみなさい。無理にでも口角を上げて、大きな声で笑うのです。わはははは。と、おかしいから笑うのではありません。笑うから、おかしくなるのです。笑うから、元気になるのです。笑いは、不安を吹き飛ばす最強の武器です。笑うもんには福来たる。これは宇宙の法則です。眉間にシワを寄せて深刻な顔をしていても、事態は1ミリも良くなりません。それどころか、ますます悪くなる。ならば、笑うが勝ちではありませんか。そして、晩年を最高のものにするためには、生き方の大転換が必要です。それは、求める生き方から与える生き方への転換です。若い頃は、自分のために求め、奪い、競争することも必要だったでしょう。自分の城を築くために、必死で石を運んだことでしょう。それはそれで立派なことです。しかし、人生の後半戦に入ったら、今度は手放し、 与える側に回るのです。ここを勘違いしてはいけません。私には与えるようなお金も財産もないという人がいますが、金や物を与えろと言っているのではありません。もっと価値のあるものを、すなわち、あなたの笑顔、あなたの優しさ、あなたの知恵、そしてあなたの徳を与えるのです。電車で席を譲られたら、申し訳なさそうにするのではなく、最高の笑顔でありがとう。あなたは素晴らしい人だね。良いことがあるよと、相手の自尊心を満たしてあげる。若者が悩んでいたら、上から目線で説教をするのではなく、ただ黙って話を聞き、君なら大丈夫、なんとかなるよと、絶対的な肯定と安心感を与えてあげる。家族に対しては、口うるさい小言を言うのではなく、いつもありがとう。お前たちのおかげで私は幸せだと、感謝の念を送る。そうやって、会う人すべてに、喜びと安心の種をまいていくのです。自分はもう社会の役に立たないなどと卑下しないでください。あなたが機嫌よく、ニコニコと生きているだけで、それは世の中に対する最大の貢献なのです。不機嫌な老人が一人いれば、家族全員が暗くなり、気を使います。しかし、太陽のように明るい老人が一人いれば、その家は、その町は、パッと明るくなり、みんなが帰りたくなる場所になるのです。あなたは、その太陽になる使命があるのです。想像してみてください。あなたが微笑むだけで、孫が安心する。あなたが挨拶するだけで、近所の人が元気になる。あなたが感謝するだけで、店員さんが仕事に誇りを持てる。これこそが、長老としての、人生の先輩としての、最も尊い仕事ではありませんか。これ以上の社会貢献がどこにありますか。晩年において、孤独を恐れる必要もありません。孤独とは、寂しいことではありません。孤高であるということです。自分自身の魂と深く対話し、宇宙と一体になるための、静寂で贅沢な時間です。群れる必要などありません。他人に依存する必要もありません。自分の中に、確固たる信念という柱を立て、凛として一人で立つ。その姿の美しさ、気高さこそが、晩年の人間の完成形です。その孤高の輝きに惹かれて、本当に必要な人だけが、自然とあなたの周りに集まってくるのです。一人を楽しめる人こそが、真に人を愛せる人なのです。そして最後に、誰もが避けて通れない死について触れておきましょう。多くの人が死を恐れています。無になること、消えてなくなることへの恐怖です。しかし、恐れることは何もありません。死とは、終わりではなく、大いなる生命への帰還です。夕日を見てごらんなさい。朝から一日中、世界を照らし続け、その役割を全うした太陽が、西の空に沈んでいくあの姿。なんと荘厳で、なんと美しいのでしょうか。あれは、消えていくのではありません。次の場所を照らすために、移動していくだけです。あるいは、春に咲いた桜が散るのを見てごらんなさい。あれは滅びるのではなく、次の春にまた咲くために、一度姿を隠すだけです。人間の命も同じです。肉体という古びた衣を脱ぎ捨てて、魂という本来の姿に戻り、大いなる宇宙の生命へと帰っていく。それは、旅立ちであり、凱旋であり、卒業式なのです。ですから、死を忌み嫌うのではなく、ああ、ご苦労様、私の体、よく頑張ってくれた、ありがとうと、感謝を持って迎えるべきものです。最高の死に方とは何か、それは、最高の生き方を貫いた先にしかありません。今日一日を、不平不満なく、感謝と歓喜で生き切った人だけに、安らかで満足に満ちた最後が訪れます。あなたが今日、誰かに親切にしたこと、誰かを許したこと、何かに感動したこと、空の青さに涙したこと、それらの一つ一つが、あなたの魂を磨き、死という大冒険への準備を整えているのです。皆様、人生は一度きりです。リハーサルはありません。そして、今日が、残りの人生で一番は回避です。過去にどんな失敗があろうと、どんな辛いことがあろうと、関係ありません。過去は過ぎ去った夢です。未来はまだ来ぬ幻です。存在する現実は、今、ここにある命だけです。今、ここから、すべてを塗り替えることができるのです。 もう年だからという言い訳は、今この瞬間、金輪際捨ててください。私には無理だという弱音も、ゴミ箱へ捨ててください。どうせ変わらないという諦めも、燃やしてしまってください。そして、代わりにこう宣言してください。私の人生は、これからが最高傑作だ。と、腹の底から力を込めて、自分自身に命じるのです。鏡の中の自分に向かって、毎日叫ぶのです。お前は素晴らしい。お前は強い。お前はこれからだ。と、そうすれば、眠っていた潜在能力が爆発的に目覚め、皆様の人生に奇跡が起こり始めます。病気が治ることもあるでしょう。なぜなら、気が満ちれば、病は居場所を失うからです。疎遠だった家族との絆が戻ることもあるでしょう。なぜなら、あなたの愛の波動が、相手の氷を溶かすからです。思いもよらない経済的な豊かさが舞い込むこともあるでしょう。なぜなら、感謝する心には、さらに感謝したくなる現実が集まるからです。これらはすべて、あなたの心が積極に切り替わったことによる、当然の報いです。宇宙は、楽しんで生きる者を応援します。宇宙は、感謝する者にさらなる感謝を与えます。これは絶対の法則です。さあ、顔を上げてください。背筋を伸ばし、堂々と胸を張ってください。あなたのその顔には、年輪という名の美しさが刻まれています。それは恥ずべきものではなく、誇るべきものです。あなたのその手には、人生を生き抜いてきた強さが宿っています。あなたのその心には、宇宙無限の力が満ちています。遠慮することはありません。もっと欲張りになりなさい。もっと幸せになることに、貪欲になりなさい。晩年こそ、人生のご褒美を受け取る時なのです。遠慮して隅っこで小さくなっている場合ではありません。私が皆様に望むことは、ただ一つ、最後の瞬間に、ベッドの上で、あるいは大好きな椅子の座りながら、ああ、面白かった。ああ、幸せだった。生まれてきてよかった。皆様、ありがとう。と、心からの笑顔で叫んで、この世を去っていただくこと、それだけです。皆様なら、必ずできます。あなたの中には、その力が眠っています。皆様の魂が、黄金色の光を放ち、この世界を照らす灯台となることを、私は確信し、そして心から祈り続けております。さあ、行こうではありませんか。恐れを知らぬ魂を抱いて、誇り高き人生のクライマックスへ、あなたのその命を、最後まで、美しく、力強く、燃やし尽くしてください。ありがとうございました。
We understand why there is some hesitation sometimes. Because when your desire is new and fresh, it calls you in a different way, doesn't it? But if you've wanted something for a while, and it seems to be slow in coming, we understand why that desire would not feel so good to you. A desire that is believed or expected feels so life-giving, while a desire that feels like it is not coming, or like it has not come, or like maybe it may never come, those desires are not as pleasant. And the trouble with that distinction is that you can't have some desires that are answerable and some that aren't. In other words, you can't say some desires are appropriate and therefore will be granted, and other desires are inappropriate and therefore will not be granted. In other words, you can't have it both ways. When you ask, it is either given or it isn't. When you ask, the answer comes forth or it doesn't. But what we want you to understand is that everything that you ask for is always answered. When you ask, it is always given, every single time, no exceptions. So, if you have desires that feel as if they are unanswered, it is not because they're not being answered. It is because there is something happening in your vibration that isn't letting them in. And that feeling of freshness or exhilaration that is present with some desires, and that feeling of discouragement or disappointment or worry or even fear that is present with other desires, those emotions that you feel are the telling distinction that you want to be focused about. In other words, every desire is answered, but if it feels fresh and exhilarating to you, you're letting it be answered sooner. If it feels like discouragement, or if it feels like fear, or if it feels like frustration even, then there is something going on in your thinking process that is hindering your reception of what you're asking for. We like to help you to feel the power that you hold in the receiving or the not receiving of your own wishes or desires. Sometimes at first, when our physical friends begin to focus upon the idea of creating their own reality, sometimes you balk at the idea, especially at first, because you're not sure that you are worthy of choosing. Sometimes you balk at the idea of being the creator of your own reality because you are not sure that you are wise enough or worthy enough. And we want, as we are moving forward here today, for you to get that one handled in your own vibration. We want you to leave this gathering no longer questioning the appropriateness of you creating your own reality. Instead, we want you to leave here knowing that not only do you create your own reality, or can you create your own reality, but no one else does. Nobody else is choosing for you. You are choosing. We want you to go with the flow. You've heard the expression, go with the flow. And we want you to realize that in the ultimate sense, what going with the flow means is going with the flow of the ideas that this time-space reality has helped to give birth to within you. In other words, if this environment has inspired the idea within you, it is our promise to you that this environment can fulfill that desire completely. You could not want it if you could not have it or be it or do it. It's not possible. The idea that you have dreamed it means that it can be yours. In fact, we would like to say to you, it means that it must be yours. But you've got to get in sync with your own desire, which means you got to go with the flow of your desire, not against the flow of your desire. How do you know when you're in the flow of a desire? It feels wonderful. It feels like passion. It feels like enthusiasm. It feels like the next logical step. It feels like well-being. How do you know when you're not going with the flow? It feels like frustration. It feels like irritation. It feels like aggravation. It feels like fear. It feels like anger. It feels like suffocation. In other words, when you're not going with the flow of what? The flow of well-being. How do we know it's the flow of well-being? It's the only flow there is. There is only a stream of well-being. You can let it in or not. If someone presses a pillow to your face and you feel deprived or suffocated from the oxygen, do you say somebody has shut the valve off for the whole world? Do you say something has happened and the air that I breathe has been siphoned from the atmosphere and now we all will be suffocated? Or do you say something is going on with me personally that is keeping me from being in the flow of oxygen? There's no source of sickness. There's no source of poverty. There's no source of bad stuff. There's no source of that sickness or stuff you do not want. But there is you, without meaning to, achieving vibrational alignment with how things are instead of with how things are desired. In other words, if you look into some poverty-ridden region or into some shadow in your body that you call illness, or into your checking account that seems to be without funds, and you pronounce, this is my current view of reality, what you're actually saying is, this is, of all the myriad of opportunity to focus that is provided for me here, this is what I'm choosing to give my undivided attention to, and therefore this is what I am choosing as my vibrational basis for now. And you can tell by the way you feel whether this choice is going with the flow of well-being, or whether, for now, you've got a pillow over your face. So, we want, in the hours that are before us, to help you to realize that you are the creator of your own experience, which means you are the author of your vibration, which means you can control with much less awareness than you have perhaps formerly thought what your vibrational output is on every subject, which means you can control the manifestational input on every subject. In other words, you can control who you rendezvous with in traffic, who you rendezvous with in restaurants, who you rendezvous with in telephone calls. You can control the functioning of your body, the longevity of your body, the flexibility of your body, the clarity of your body. You can control the financial influx into your experience. You can control the people who will come to assist you. In other words, you, only you, are the creator of your own reality. And so we would like to help you to acknowledge, at least as a first step here today, that you want to be the creator of your own reality. Because until you acknowledge, yes, I want to do it, then everything that we will say here today will be sort of irrelevant to you. If you don't want to be the creator of your own reality, then we can't really help you here, but we encourage you to stay anyway because you are the creator of your own reality. So whether you know it or not, whether you want it to be that way or not, that is the way that it is. And it is ever so helpful to start relaxing and trusting yourself a little more and saying things such as, well, I am the creator of my own reality, and while I'm not very good yet at being the creator of my own reality, I like the idea at least that I'm the creator of my own reality, and I'm going to start paying attention to the way I feel so that I can start being more the deliberate creator of my own reality. We would like you to begin saying, it is important to me to be aware of how I feel because the way I feel is my indicator of what I'm doing vibrationally. Do you understand that? That your vibration is indicated to you through emotion. Everything around all of us, whether you are physically focused as you are or whether you are non-physically focused as we are, and really there's very little difference between the two, you are full of those like us. In other words, you cannot separate yourself from the non-physical energy and consciousness and awareness and joyousness and intelligence and willingness and helpfulness. That is us. In other words, you can't get rid of us. You can't shake us off. You can't feel bad enough that we ever go away. You can feel bad enough that you don't acknowledge that we're there. You can feel bad enough that you don't hear what we have to say. You can feel bad enough that you don't have the benefit of our presence, but you can never shake loose of your connection to source energy. It can't be done. You are flesh, blood, and bone beings, but you are more vibration than anything else. And the vibration of your being is your point of attraction. It is the signal that is always being answered. So as you make a statement and really mean it, I'm going to do my best to feel as good as I can from where I am right now. That statement is fabulous. That statement is good enough because what you're saying is, I'm going to reach for the best feeling thought I can find. And if you reach from depression and you find a thought of anger, have you ever done that? Have you ever been so depressed or in such despair that anger actually felt like a relief to you? It always would, because the vibrational properties of anger are much more allowing of connection than the vibrational properties of despair. You know why that is? Because all of these emotions, no matter what you call them, all the way from despair to passion or joy, they are all about your sense of freedom and well-being. In other words, up here in the joy range, you feel self-empowered. There is empowerment there. Down there in the despair range, you feel powerless. Don't you find that interesting, that your emotional guidance system is based upon who you really are? That you are these powerful, clear-minded, free beings. You are so free that you can choose bondage. You are free to choose, free to focus, free to offer vibrations, free to attract. Sometimes people will see you as you've moved naturally into anger, And they will say to you, your anger is inappropriate. And we would like you to say to them, maybe so, but I'm happy here. This is my happy zone. I cannot reach the bliss that you have reached right now. This is as good as it gets for me, and it feels so much better than where I've been that I'm going to stay here for a while. So if it's unpleasant to you, I suggest you stay clear of me for a while. Do not worry, say to them, I don't plan on staying here very long because I have this new mantra that says I'm going to continue to reach for the best feeling thought I can find, the best feeling thought I can find, the best feeling thought I can find. So I don't anticipate that I'm going to stay here forever, but for now this is the best feeling thought I can find. I'm working on something in the area of frustration and overwhelmment, but right now this is the best feeling thought I can find. And here is the important thing about this. If you have reached for the angry thought deliberately and have found it, and you can consciously acknowledge that it feels better than where you have been, now you have regained your power, which was what the whole negative emotion thing was about to begin with. That's why once you make that first step into something where you have consciously acknowledged that you're back in control, you can move quickly up the emotional scale. But until you acknowledge that you've done it on purpose and that you have affected the change, then you feel powerless. Then it feels like karma did it to you. Then it feels like your powerful mother did it to you. Then it feels like the government did it to you, or the economy did it to you, or a past life did it to you. You are very creative in all of the ways you explain why things aren't going better. But you never feel good until you acknowledge that you have creative control. The key to this moving up the emotional scale, in fact, it's such a wonderful exercise that we call it moving up the emotional scale. The key to it is reaching for the feeling of relief. There is allowing and there is resisting. And in leaving resistance behind, you find allowing. But the physical, visceral sensation of leaving resistance behind is a feeling of relief. So every time you feel just a little bit better, you have left behind a little bit of resistance. And every time you leave just a little bit of resistance behind, you are allowing more of the things that you've been asking for. So all of those things that have been held in vibrational escrow for you, we're not kidding you. Every time you've been in a situation where contrast has caused you to offer a preference, even if you didn't know you were offering the preference, you didn't speak about it, or you didn't write it down, you didn't say, I have a goal. Every time contrast produced preference within you, it preceded you vibrationally. And non-physical energy, non-physical beings like Abraham, like your inner beings, non-physical beings focused upon the rocket that you launched and are imagining it coming to fruition for you. So there is a pre-paving energy vortex that extends out before you, and it is full of all of the things that you want. You are beginning to close the gap between things wanted and things received? That was a trick question. You've reached the place where you are satisfied with unfulfilled desires. In other words, your contrasting experience has helped you to identify that you are wanting things. And those things, some of them have not yet manifested. In fact, some of them you cannot even begin to see how they might manifest. Some of them are sort of far-fetched in terms of the relationship between where you are and what you want. And so our question, our very important question to you is, you are all right with that? Those unfulfilled desires are now a source of life-giving to you? Well, there will be a time when you will remember that that's how you really felt. And there will be a time that you will feel that way again, where your contrasting experience will have inspired within you an awareness of something that you want. And even though that manifestation has not yet come, you will not be upset about it. You will not be worried about it. You will not be fearful that it will not come, because you will understand that anything that you ask for is given. You will understand that when contrast inspires within you a desire, that the same environment which has provided the contrast which has inspired the desire has the resources to fulfill the desire. So there is never a case where you could ask for something and it could be out of your reach. There is never, ever anything that you identify as desire, big or small, far-reaching or up close, that you do not have the ability to receive. And the reason for that is because when you ask, it is always given. The reason for that, you may not really know this. You are here in these physical bodies, but you are extensions of source energy, not separate from source energy, not sent on a mission for source energy, not here to prove your worthiness to source energy. You are extensions of source energy. You are the physical manifestation of that which is source, and that which is source is at the heart of that which is you. When you are moving in the direction of those things that are being held for you in vibrational escrow that you are wanting, you can feel by the positive emotions that you are feeling that you are moving in the right direction. When you are moving toward those things that are being held for you in vibrational escrow that you don't want, you can tell by the way you feel as you are moving toward them that you are moving toward them. Everything that you think about, everything that you talk about, everything that you are doing on a day-to-day basis is contributing to that vibrational escrow. In other words, you are launching those rockets of desires. Those rockets of desires are moving from you into the ethers, and they are being acted on by all that is. In other words, the fairies of the universe, the non-physical energies, in conjunction with everything that you know of physical nature, is all working together in order to move toward that which you are creating. And the thing that we so much want you to remember is that more than 99% of every creation is complete before you see any physical evidence of it. So you are moving powerfully toward all kinds of things without being really aware that you are in terms of manifestation, because the manifestation doesn't show up until much of the energy has already been launched. So when you are understanding that the way you feel is your indicator of what it is you are moving toward, then you will no longer say, as so many people say, oh, it just came out of the blue. This thing I really did not want just landed on me out of the blue. And we say, hardly. It didn't just come out of the blue. You've been marching toward it, knowing by the way you feel that you are moving toward it, and you can never have a happy ending at the end of an unhappy journey. It just doesn't work out that way. In other words, the way you're feeling along the way is the way you're continuing to prepave your journey, and it's the way it's going to continue to turn out until you do something about the way you are feeling. So what we are encouraging you to do is to realize that you can tell by the way you feel what you are moving toward. It would be a good picture for you to realize that every subject is really two subjects. It's like opposite ends of the stick. And on one end of the stick is something you don't want, and on the other end of the stick is something you do want. In other words, wellness on one end, sickness on the other. It's the same subject really, but really different ends of the stick. Plenty of money on one end, not nearly enough on the other. It's the same subject, but really different ends of the stick. And when you think about plenty of money, you feel one way. When you think about not nearly enough money, you feel the other way. And so consider that out there in your future experience is a big long stick. And that stick represents some subject of something you really want or something you really don't want. On one end of it is something you want. On the other end of it is something that you don't want. And you can tell by the way you feel, thought by thought, comment by comment, action by action, which way you're going. You can tell. So when you realize that you're standing where you're standing, and where you are is just fine. So when you realize that out there is this subject, and as you move this direction, you're moving toward what you don't want, and as you're moving this direction, you're moving towards something that you do want. And then you realize that in every moment you have options. In every moment you are making a statement, thinking a thought, having a feeling, directing something about you, and the statement that you're making in every case is moving slightly in the direction of what you want or slightly in the direction of what you don't want. Yes? So we like to say it's like forking off. It's like forking off gently towards something that you don't want, or forking in the direction of something that you do want. And when you begin to realize the power of your now, you see, sometimes people will say, Abraham, it's so unsettling to me because I'm so far from things that I want in terms of manifestation. And we say, you really are not far in terms of time at all. You may be far in terms of your vibrational frequency. You may be offering vibrations that are in opposition to what you want, and your emotions are letting you know that you're doing that. But your distance that you must travel is not a distance through time and not a distance through space. It's the timing about how your manifestations come to you is about your vibrational alignment. It's about closing the gap in that vibrational relativity between where you are and where you want to be. You get to choose from right where you are the next step or the next thought or the next vibration. And that vibration that you choose through what you're pondering or commenting on, that vibration will be moving you closer toward what you are wanting or closer toward what you are not wanting. Because everything that you're doing in every moment is moving you. You cannot stand still. People sometimes say, oh, I'm just stuck. And we say that's not possible because things are always in motion. But as you continue to say similar things, even though things are changing, they're changing to the same thing over and over again. You have to begin to make different forking. You have to begin to make different choices. Your emotions follow a very broad range. On one end of the emotional scale are emotions that feel very good to you, emotions that you would describe as appreciation or love or joy, passion, enthusiasm. And on the other end of the emotional scale are emotions that don't feel so good. They feel like despair or fear or feelings of disempowerment, feelings of powerful discouragement. On the end of the scale that feels pretty good to you is your perception of freedom, your perception of your own power, your perception of your own power, which is who you really are and what source really knows you to be. On the other end of the emotional scale, where the emotions don't feel so good, is your perception of not freedom. And we use the word perception because it really is perceptual. You are so free you can choose bondage if you want to. You truly are free because no one can offer a vibration for you. They can influence your vibration. They can behave in ways that as you observe, you are affected. But ultimately, you are the one who is the keeper of your vibration. And when you understand that, then you can do something about beginning to close the vibrational gap between where you are and where you want to be. As you are closing that vibrational gap, on one end of the scale, you may be frustrated, you may be angry, you may be depressed, you may be in true despair about something, you may have strong fear about something. But if you are in any of those vibrations and someone is encouraging you to cheer up or to follow your bliss or to find something to appreciate, or they tell you that you're the creator of your own reality, you need to cheer up, you've got to want to say that can't be true or you'd be gone, because nothing is more disconcerting than to be in a vibration that feels awful, where the life is being sucked out of you, and have some bright-eyed, bushy-tailed person trying to coax you back into your alignment. Because in the same way that you cannot set your radio dial on 6:30 a.m. and hear what's being broadcast on 98.7 FM, the frequencies don't match up when you are depressed or when you are discouraged with thoughts or feelings or memories or incidences that match that different frequency that matches appreciation. In other words, when you are depressed, you don't have access to appreciation. You just don't. And what we're wanting you to understand is that while when you're depressed, you don't have access to thoughts of appreciation, when you're depressed, you have access to thoughts of anger. Ah, the life-giving breath of fresh air that revenge brings. And what we want you to hear in terms of what we're talking about here today is that when you reach from your place of desperation or from your place of despair, when you reach for a thought of revenge, from our point of view, you are forking in the right direction. As you fork that far and you find that feeling of revenge, you may not be able to tell from where you are now, because you're far from that feeling of revenge. And the idea of revenge for you feels like going in the wrong direction. But if you've ever been truly depressed and you got mad, didn't you feel the relief that your anger brought you? And the reason you felt relief in anger is because there is less resistance in anger than there is in depression or despair or fear. So, resistance of what? Resistance of your alignment with your true signal. And your true signal is source energy. Your true signal is the pure positive energy that is your source. Your true signal is elation. Your true signal is appreciation. Your true signal is love. Your true signal is worthiness. Your true signal is knowing your value. Your true signal is recognizing the value in others. Your true signal is tuned in, tapped in, turned on. Your true signal is alignment with source. Your true signal is vibrationally standing here in your leading edge place, finding thoughts that allow a pure connection between you and you. And when you allow that pure connection, you thrive. Abundance of all manner that pleases you flows easily to you. You find clarity. You find stability. You find vitality. You find ability to reason. You find solutions to questions and problems before you've even become too utterly aware of the problem. Imagine that. Contrast sends a rocket of desire into your experience, and the desire is answered before the question is ever really fully manifested into your experience. Do you know that if you can get in sync with who you really are, that you can launch the solutions to your problems so quickly on the heels of your identification of your problem that the solution and the problem will manifest in the same moment and you will not even be aware that there was ever a problem? That's how good you get when you get into sync with who you are. You are vibrational creators. You are leading edge energy beings. You are source energies in physical bodies, and you are extensions of pure positive energy. And the better you feel, the more you are allowing that alignment in any moment, and the worse you feel, the more you are not allowing it. You are the creator of your own experience, and it is playing out exactly as you are offering it vibrationally. So it does not matter where you are, because where you are will bring a solution. In other words, where you are will always evolve into something that is even better than where you are. Because where you are is full of data that causes preferences to be born, and as the preferences are born, source adheres to the preference, and one point of vibrational relativity becomes a fact in your vibrational countenance right now. The only other question is, where are you in relationship with that? And that's why we call this gathering the art of allowing, because it is the art of allowing myself over here in this vibrational countenance to come into vibrational alignment with who I really am, to be the receiver of what my exposure to this experience has caused me to contribute to this experience. Do you know that you in your generation are now benefiting by contrasts that past generations lived and desires that they launched into vibrational futures? And do you know that you are today launching rockets of desires that future generations will benefit from? And do you know that that's not why we're here talking with you? That the reason that we're here talking with you is that we believe that it is time for you to become the beneficiaries of your own romp through contrast. We think it's time for you to give birth to your desires that are pertinent to your experience, and that you be the full-blown manifestors of the desires that you have given birth to. Because we know you create your own reality. We see you offering your vibrations. We see heaven and earth parting in order to accommodate whatever it is that you're offering vibration.